Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Joe Rogan does it with just him and Jamie, but
Yeah.
Jamie's a professional production guy, so
Yeah.
that's, I guess, why. All right. So welcome to Don't Hold Your Breath podcast. This is episode, whatever it's going to be. We're pre-recording because we're starting out. Hopefully Earon Gatlin will be a repeat offender
Yeah.
on the show because he's got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We'll have a good conversation here. We're here to provide guidance, inspiration, and assistance to aspiring entrepreneurs, and leaders using the time-tested wisdom of known success gurus alongside the firsthand boots on the ground knowledge and experience of our guests. So today we're here talking with Earon Gatlin. Earon and I worked together for a little while. Luckily for me, probably luckily for him a little bit too, because I'm a pretty cool guy sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And so now we're gonna sit down and have a conversation. I've got some questions, but generally, what's going on? How you been?
Oh, I've been good, man. Just left my job, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. So just gonna take a new start in life, kind of
Nice.
take it.
Sometimes that's refreshing.
Take it easy for a little bit and then figure it out.
At least you did it of your own free will and volition. So
Yes,
you kind of were, you took the initiative.
Yes.
It's important.
Yeah. Step one.
Yeah.
Take initiative. Take action.
So, I mean, have you thought about what other plans that you have going on, or do you have other stuff kind of on the back burner, or?
No. I mean, I had a consulting company for a while that I did some. I like to help mom and pop places. I'm certified in Toast, R365. These are some components that help you do inventory, payroll,
Nice
stuff like that. So I'm certified in a lot of those different things, and I've found in the last couple of years there's a big need, for that in the community as they get these systems, they get these things, and then don't really understand how to use them or how to get the most out of them. Right? It's easy to buy a piece of software, but if you don't understand, how to make it work, it just kind of sits there collecting dust or taking money out of your bank account.
For sure. It's like the cell phones, like they're only as good as, or an app or whatever it is, like it's only as good as how much you use it.
Yeah.
Right. The Notes app is really useful and it comes with the iPhone, but if you don't use it, then it's not useful at all.
Very true.
So, yeah.
Very true.
Same kind of concept. Well, I learned a lot from you at the place where we worked previously.
Yeah.
And I learned about composure, especially when facing difficult conversations, write-ups and terminations and disagreements, standing up at meetings. You're always really good at voicing your opinion at meetings, coaching people on negative habits. And none of those have ever been strong points for me. So I was wondering, where did you learn that skill, or were you born with it, or what combination of that? And what are some tips and pointers around having difficult conversations?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that I was born with it. I mean, maybe I was, but I think it was something that I learned, over time. I've worked for a couple of great concepts where one of their core values was pain of failure, strong vision. And I think I lived a lot of my life with pain of failure versus the strong vision. So when you get to have those coaching moments, typically it's because you've had trial by fire. And you don't make it about the person, you make it about the problem, and so I think that makes the conversation a little bit easier, because you're trying to not only help the business, but realizing that deep down you're trying to help the person. And so that's always kind of been one of my mottos or goals, when hitting something, head on, is attack the problem, not the person, so that they can, they don't immediately go into the defensive. So I think it was something that I've learned, just over my years of making a lot of mistakes and then realizing that I can help point people in the right direction.
Yeah.
Based on my own past failures.
That's a really good, perspective and a really good piece of advice to attack the person. Attack the problem, not the person.
Yeah.
Because definitely we were talking with Marlon on another podcast about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the principal tenets, right? It's just, treat people with respect and give them the positive as much as you can. So talk a little bit more about pain of failure, strong vision. What is that? Expand on that.
Well, I mean, you kind of have two ways of attacking a problem. Either you're faced with something and you have good enough vision or strong enough vision, or that you can navigate your way through it and then you win. Or you have pain of failure. So you've been faced with this situation before.
Gotcha.
And you made the wrong decision. and you had the burn of that decision, whether it was lifting too much weights or driving too fast or, whatever that may be, you have that pain of making the wrong decision.
We've all had plenty of those pains of failure.
Smart people.
It's a good teacher, yeah.
Smart people don't make that same mistake again,
right.
Or at least maybe if they do, then they recover from it a little bit better. So maybe it's just not as aggressive as a bad decision. So I think, again, that was a 10 commandment at one of my previous jobs. And I just love it. Pain of failure or strong vision. You got to have one or the other. Learn from your mistakes or have enough, foresight to be able to see the things that can go wrong and then don't make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Pain of failure definitely is a great teacher, but it's not always the one you want to learn from.
Right.
So it's cool if you can learn from somebody else's pain of failure as well. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe get some strong vision from that. But yeah, that's good. That's a good, compass. It's a good piece. So sometimes when we're having those conversations and we are, getting in there and attacking a problem without attacking the person, sometimes it's common in a lot of companies to hear that you should ask the employee or the team member, what can I do better as a leader? Right? How can I help? What can I do better as a leader? So how often do you ask that of your team, and how often do you ask that of yourself? And where do you think that the more effective and truthful answers come from? And what's the ratio between those two perspectives that you found effective?
Well, I think both of those are extremely effective, but you have to do something first, which is create trust. Because you can ask the question all you want, but if your team doesn't trust you to give you that answer, then asking the question, you get very shallow answers, right? Like, how could I be a better leader? Oh, you're a great leader, right? Or whatever shallow, very answer that you can get. But when you have that trust and you've built that trust within your team, and you build trust by showing up, then when you ask those questions, you're going to get real answers. You're going to get real feedback, and you're going to be able to make improvements, not only in yourself, but your leadership style or whatever else. And I think that's what you also have to do for yourself. If you don't trust yourself, trust your instincts, trust your decisions, then when you go into those things, when you ask yourself, well, how could I be better? You think, I don't need to be better, right? Oh, it wasn't me that was the problem. It was them. They didn't take my message the right way or whatever. So I think that's the biggest thing, is you have to trust, your past successes, your knowledge, your instincts, and then you have to build that trust with your people, whether, all the way down from the dishwasher up to the, the owner, CFO, whatever that is. You have to build that trust so that they feel in a safe space, because it's very hard to take feedback. No matter who you say you are, it's always tough to take feedback. But if you have that trusting relationship, they're giving you that feedback to help you, but also to help the relationship that you have between that person. So I think define trust, build trust with them. And then, absolutely, being able to ask, it's great feedback, as long as you take that feedback and then, don't weaponize it against them. But, I think that's kind of how I look at that.
That's a really good point too. And I like the insight of having to build trust with yourself. Yeah. And, building trust with yourself would mean keeping promises to yourself. Mm-hmm. So that ties into kind of part of the theme of this podcast too, about not holding your breath means don't stop, don't quit, continue and be persistent. Don't hold your breath, because you need to keep on breathing. Yeah. And even if you're not doing the best workout every day, or you don't do your full, 20 minutes or 30 minutes of meditation every day, if you're doing it, then you're keeping the promise to yourself. And even if you do 5 or 10 minutes, at least you're keeping that promise to yourself, and you can still move forward that way. So,
I think, and I don't know the quote, but it makes you learn, the first thing you got to do is trust yourself. But it talks about a bird, right? A bird doesn't trust the branch that it's on. It trusts the wings that it has. Oh, so, wow. It's like, you first have to trust yourself. A lot of the stuff begins with yourself, whether it's the fruit that you try to bear in others. If you're not bearing fruit for yourself, or you're not in a good mental place or physical place, it's hard for you to do those things for others. If you have an empty cup, it's hard to put anything in anybody else's cup. So, I think a lot of that begins with kind of how you, treat and handle yourself.
Yeah. Nice. Hell yeah. The bird doesn't trust the branch. It trusts its wings. Mm-hmm.
I don't know who said it. I didn't come up with that. Wish I did.
You did now. Yeah. That's cool, man. So, so energy follows awareness. And are you always aware of where your energy or attention is? And how do you maintain a consistent compass, like a compass heading to focus your energy in the right direction?
For me, it starts in the morning, whether it's having the discipline to get up, whatever time that may be. Usually it's any time between 5 and 6. And then doing my, morning walk, whether it's, and then listening to podcasts, audiobooks, reading things like that. Sorry, I forgot the question.
So are you always aware of where your energy and attention is, and how do you consistently focus it on the same compass?
Yeah. So no, there are times that you forget where your energy is, but I think doing those daily things helps me start the day off right. I think that's a very important thing. That's where I was going with that, is starting the day off right. It helps you maintain that energy and be more aware of kind of where you're at mentally or physically or whatever. Whereas if you wake up and you don't do that, or your routine gets a little bit sideways or something, or you wake up late, you wake up tired, whatever, and you choose not to do something, then I think your energy has a lot more of an impact on you throughout the day to kind of send you sideways versus, staying grounded to what that is. But no, I that's a very important thing, is you got to have that energy. You got to be a fountain, not a drain, or be a lighthouse, not a tugboat. There's a lot of little one-off sayings around energy. You have to be the energy that you bring, in the room. Cool. And so, especially as a leader, a multi-unit leader, former director of operations, director of culinary, I mean, this, right? Like if you walk into a restaurant or a building and you don't have that energy, people somehow seem to absorb that.
Yeah,
but if you have that energy, even if like the shift's going sideways, or they're in the weeds and they see you walk in and they know you're that energy.
Yeah.
Even hopping on Expo or hopping on Saute or Fry Side, whatever, like they know that you're that energy versus that drain. So it's very important, in our role as, entrepreneurs to maintain that energy. And so focusing on that, you have to do the things that bring you energy. So for me, it's getting up early in the morning and doing a little walk and listening to some audiobooks, just kind of getting my mind right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It kind of reminds me of the eat the frog concept. Is that Dan Martell as well? The eat the frog? I know you did buy back your time, but
yeah, I thought someone did it. Yeah, but I've heard that. Yeah, the eat the frog.
So getting that first thing out of the way, where it's just to get the big chunk done. And when I started going back to the gym and working out, that was hard for me. Mm-hmm. So that's still one of the first things that I do.
Yeah.
The ice baths, when I do the ice baths in the morning now, when it started the first 3 or 4 days, it had a lot of novelty to it. So it was kind of like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get in there and do it. And I'm checking the temperature and I'm like, it's getting colder today. And then after, easily by the end of the first week, I'm sitting there standing over the bathtub full of ice. And I'm like, God, fuck this. Yeah. This is not what I want to fucking do today. And then you have to really like push yourself to get in. So that's the second thing that I do. I'll wake up, go downstairs and get the ice jugs and throw them in the tub. And then I'll go do my meditation, and then I'll come back in there and do it. Yeah. So, but the meditation is a hard thing to do too, because my mind is so active all the time. To be able to sit there and try to quiet my mind, it's torture for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I love thinking about stuff and like just figuring out problems and thinking about conceptualizing things and stuff. And it's a tough one. So, but if I knock those things out in the morning, generally my day is great. If I just do those two things, boom, I'm good to go.
Yeah. And a piece of advice I heard recently is, when you have those activities, or daily, weekly, whatever they are, have a minimum standard and, like, of course, a maximum or a perfect standard, right? Yeah. So like if it's going to be workout, like if that's an hour at the gym and 30 minutes at the sauna, okay, that's a perfect workout. That's your maximum. That's the goal every single day. But if you don't have the energy or don't not do anything, right? Do 100 push-ups. Or a 2-minute wall sit, whatever that is, like, as long as you have some sort of an activity, then you can say that day, hey, I did something to physically advance, my body or whatever. Or the mental thing, like if you don't have a 30-minute meditation window, figuring out a way to, your minimum is 5 minutes, no matter what, right. Nothing. It doesn't matter if the world's burning down.
That's true. I do.
So have the minimum and the maximum, and you're less likely to get deflated if, you go in and you have a couple of 5-minute days and then 100%. You feel refreshed, and it's like, okay, now I'm back on track, versus having a couple of no-minute days.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely works. Jocko calls it going through the motions. Mm-hmm. He goes, on the days that you don't want to get up and you don't want to do it, don't procrastinate. Just go through the motions.
Yeah.
Go do, if you're gonna do 3 exercises at the gym, on your chest and tries, go do those 3 exercises. Even if you do 10 pounds of weight or whatever, pussy level stuff, at least you're going through the motions and you're doing it. So you're actually there. So you're okay with yourself once you come out. Yeah. It's true. It's a good point. And yeah, I think that, being able to right the ship by walking in the building, because everyone perceives you already as that positive energy, that assistive energy is huge. It's definitely huge. I've definitely experienced a lot of that recently with KPs and their team and everything. So if I walk in and they're having a rough day, I just come in full of sunshine and, farting rainbows.
Yeah.
So everybody can be a little bit out of sorts. And then I'll just come in and just start putting out little fires and just making contact with every person in that building and giving them some love. And then they start feeling right. And everything's good.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. So, this is a little bit different, tilt, which is there's planning and there's strategy. So what do you consider to be the difference between planning and strategy? Like, what are the key differences, like in regard to a company or a brand, if you're building a company for the entrepreneurs out there?
This is something that's newly come across if I was to think about it, I would think they'd be very similar. That they would I know they go hand in hand, but I would feel like they're kind of like the same thing. But I think that's kind of like people confusing marketing versus advertising versus PR. All of they're very different, even though the goal is to increase awareness, increase sales. But I've just started kind of coming across where people are actually learning or trying to differentiate that and understanding those. And so I would say strategy would be, what's the long-term objective that you want to accomplish? So like Coach Burt calls it from A to B. So I think it would be the B.
Okay.
Or the atomic habit would be the end goal. So I think that's the strategy is what you want to accomplish. And then I think the planning is the different milestones that you have to put in place to hit it, versus trying to just, all right, our plan is to, go from 3 million to 5 million. No, the strategy is we want to increase sales, but here's the plan on how we're going to do it. Now I could be completely wrong. Again, I've just started kind of coming across this, but that's kind of how I
it makes sense.
Interpret it, right? Is like with whether it's atomic habits or buy back your time, it's doing those. It's a lot. It's very hard for people to consume. How can I save $10,000 a year? Or whatever. That's a big number. But if you break it down to $833 a month, that's a lot easier to swallow. And then if you break it down to $27.50 a day, okay, that's a lot easier to swallow, right? That's not going out. That's making my lunch, or it's a lot easier. And you do those small habits versus just, hey, I want to save $10,000 by the end of next year. That'd be the strategy, would be to save money. But planning would be every day I'm gonna make my own coffee, or I'm gonna make my lunch, but I'm gonna buy whatever that is. That's in my mind what planning is.
Yeah, so it's the small steps to get to the big goal, basically. There's more planning versus strategy. Yeah, that makes sense. It's also a new concept to me, which is why I was going to bring it up to you, because I want to have as much perspective on that as I can. And I heard like a 10-minute video about it, and that's kind of my read on it too. It's more like everyone plans and thinks that it's just strategy, but if you don't have that long-term vision, or if you don't have the plan of what our intention is to do in the marketplace, then you're basically just planning, and you're just planning with things versus effects, almost something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. That's something that we'll dig deeper into and figure out some more about. I think it's at the place where I'm at right now with the whole Grand and Sons and all this concept that's developing. I think it's important to look at. So they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So who are those people for you? Are they real or are they digital? And how much do you influence your company and those people versus allowing the people in the company or the people around you to influence you?
I would say a couple of them are digital. Right now it's Jim Sullivan, rereading multi-unit management or multi-unit leadership. So that one's a big one. I just got done with Natalie Dawson's audio book called Start the Work. So I would say those two have definitely played the biggest role from a digital footprint. And the other 3 would probably be, I've got a longtime, friend and coworker, Josh, who's, made a huge impact on my life. I would say you did, man. Honestly, spending the time with you at Federal, and then watching, you know, your talents and your skill sets and like what you bring to the table. Just that your culinary knowledge, like literally like learning how, if you mix it in at this time versus this time, or at this speed or this temperature, like how it can positively or negatively impact food. Like I can do that with people, so I feel like I'm a good chef of people.
For sure.
But I think,
yeah.
you know, like, and you've got a little bit of that both, you know, but just like watching the magic that you do. Like I've learned so much just even in like little techniques and how to use a spoon instead of like tongs or a fork, you know, like
That's cool. Thank you.
you know, and then I would say Daniel, you know, he's a GM of mine, and he was a former GM. And, you know, we spent a year together at a previous concept. I would say probably didn't spend enough time or really see eye to eye. But over this last probably year to 18 months, not only is he become a great coworker, but he's been a great mentor. And he says all the time that, you know, I'm a great mentee or whatever. Like we have a great relationship, and that comes with trust too, because it's always hard to be able to open up and confide to someone that reports to you.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to have that trust that you can share the things that you're going through. Because in his past life, he was in a role similar to mine, you know, director of operations, vice president of operations. So it's always good to have that relationship with someone who's got kind of like boots on ground or in the trenches, you know, like as you kind of grow up and get higher up in a company, you become more like the person that reads the dashboard versus the person that understands what's under the hood.
Yes.
And so it's
yeah.
always good. Like I feel like that's why I've been able to make an impact on people. Is one, you know, putting someone in my inner circle that's like in the trenches, so that you always stay grounded. Because it's really easy to be at 30,000 feet and tell everybody what they do wrong.
Right.
But it takes a true person to go, hey man, I need to get down to 10,000 feet or 500 feet and really help this person diagnose it, or diagnose it myself, then
Right.
fly back up, develop the plan or the strategy, and then fly back down and then, you know, implement it. But yeah, I would say those are, you know, my 5 people that I really kind of rely on, you know, for whether it's insight or banter or, you know, joking, you know, sharing memes, whatever that may be. I would say those have been my 5, you know, for probably the last year or so.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Josh for a little while, since he went up to Dallas.
Yeah.
And I need to get back with him because
He's
I was supposed to help him with some things that he was leaving behind here, but I got kind of sidetracked.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to him and say, "Hi, what's up, Josh?" Hopefully we'll send you the episode.
We'll send it.
So yeah, that's cool, man. And I liked working with Daniel too. We had we're both very strong, like alpha type personalities. And so we definitely had our moments.
Yeah.
But I do like him. I think he's a good guy, and he definitely is a very skilled operator in the restaurant world for sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so those are the 5 people, but so the second part of that question is more about, sometimes you can go into a company or go into a space and you're surrounded by, let's say, the 5 people in that little organism, and you can be impacted positively or negatively sometimes by the people that are around you. And so what kind of tools or tactics or techniques that, you know, can you think of or share that they can help approach that situation to where if you're being influenced in a negative way, or, you know, you want to change your influence and actually influence the team instead of being influenced by them, what do you think are some things that can kind of help control that dynamic?
Alignment is huge. So whether it's you have a mission statement or your core values or your purpose or strategy, whatever that may be, I think the biggest tool is to allow those things to be your lighthouse. So if you ever feel like you're being influenced in a wrong way, then you have to look at what's the why. You know, I think Simon Sinek wrote the book, you know, like about why. You know, find your why. Like that should be what helps bring you, you know, back to center, you know, but also surrounding yourself with people that if they see you getting off center, that they're going to not influence you to get further off center. They're going to influence you to get back to center. So I think if you don't have strong core values, and that's not just putting it on a wall, it's putting it into the way you live your life, the way you mentor, lead, coach your team, the way you talk to people, treat people. Like those core values should be kind of your compass. And I think as long as you have that, it's really hard to kind of sway a team in the wrong direction, as long as you all have alignment and are fighting for those kind of same goals. But it's much easier. I mean, the old analogy is if I stood on this table it's much easier for you to pull me down than it is to pull you up. You
Right.
could weigh 50 pounds and I could be the strongest man alive. It's going to be a lot harder for me to pull you up versus just a little jerk and I'm coming flying off that table. So you have to be very cautious and very careful of the circles that you get involved in and surround yourself with. Because if you do make that decision and they don't believe in the same core values or they don't believe in that type of stuff, it is very easy to get swayed, over into that negative area or that destructive area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. You can control, so you can control influence but the alignment is an interesting thing where you have to know your own core values, not just the company's, but your own personal core values so that you have, an anchor or a compass that's keeping you pointing in the right direction. I was thinking about the core values over here for Grand and Sons, and you brought up curiosity, which was really good point. I think it's a better way of saying lifetime learner, right?
Yeah.
Curiosity, I think implies a little bit more of a, what would you call that? Like just an inner fire that creates that real curiosity rather than lifetime learner, which seems a little bit more dutiful and diligent, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so I think that's definitely a good one. It's a very important one, but I was thinking about a structure and, let me know what you think about it. If there was a structure of a company who had core values that were just the 5 standard core values for everybody in the company, and then had a separate set of values for the leadership team and had a list of, say, 20 different core values, and each leader had to have at least 5 of those at any given time, or at least, you could work out some sort of ratio,
Yeah.
But what do you think about some kind of system like that where the leaders, and they're all different and distinct from the 5 that are of course for everybody. So you got 5 to be an employee, but then in order to be a leader, you have to have 5 different ones that are maybe a little bit more impactful or a little bit more severe.
Yeah, I've never seen it done, but doesn't mean that it couldn't be worked. I think, if you have sometimes I've heard, if you have things that are too broad, it can create too much, confusion or whatever, or it can create too many people trying to row in too different of a direction. I also think a lot of core values, they're, synonyms where like,
correct.
It's one, but it kind of they can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I think to have 20, you'd need to make sure that they all, were able to be different and not in some way follow the tree of the word if it comes back.
Yeah, I just came up with that number off the top of my head. Maybe if it was 10 and you had to have 7 of those, or if it was 7 and you had to have 5 of those, or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think it would create diversity. Patrick Lencioni does, it's called the working genius, and he said everybody has 2 working competencies, 2 working like frustrations, and 2 working something else. With just like basically 1 gives you energy, 1 you're okay at doing that, and 1 it like sucks your energy. So I think having something like that where you want to have a blended team, so there's invention and wonder, and then there's discernment, enablement, galvanizing, and then tenacity. And so like I'm an E and T, so enable and tenacity. That means I get things done. I don't like to invent. I don't like to wonder. So it actually frustrates me to sit in meetings where we ideate and talk about all the future. It's like, no, once you guys figure that out.
That's why we compliment each other.
Tell me what the plan, tell me that we're ready to go. And I'm going to rally the troops, enable the, create the enablement and then get it done. So I think I like the idea of having core values that that complement each other more than all the kind of the same thing. So it's like someone could be low of this, but really high in this, as long as you have someone on the leadership team that balances it out. I think that could be a very, unique way of approaching it. Like something I've never seen is the way you handle your core values. Like not only do I love all your core values, but I love how you tie them into the reward or the action or the, what's going, kind of like the result, which that's what I love. Cause not a lot of people, break it down in that manner. So it always talks about you talking about the why, versus just the how. Like this is how we're going to do it. Well, no, this is why we do it. So you've got both. This is why, and then this is what it's going to produce. And so I love your take on that and adding that second piece of core value.
Yeah. I'm not sure what made me think of that other than, I didn't even think about that when I was creating them, honestly. But when once they came out that way, I realized you have to remember, you can't just memorize this list.
Yeah.
and you have to actually remember why. Well, why is it that?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of helps to ingrain them, I think, into the people more.
Absolutely.
And the concept of having different people who balance each other out on the team is exactly what I was thinking too, about the having multiple ones, but not everybody has to have every single one of those characteristics, because you want to have some different people who can actually be specialists in different areas and then work together in certain areas.
Yeah, I think for it to work though, you would have to understand the adverse effect of whatever the core value is. So if someone didn't have discipline, they also couldn't be undisciplined or have no discipline. Like maybe discipline's not their strong suit, or it doesn't give them energy, but it can't be something that they lack zero discipline, right? Because then they're going to be counterproductive to what you're trying. So they have to have at least some minimum standard of discipline, but maybe they're not like the guy that's the highest discipline. Like the highest discipline is going to be your guy that's going to motivate the team and get them going and say, hey guys, hey, we got to get on this project. We got to get this done. You know, here's the steps that we need to do every day to hit these marks, whatever. And then the person that doesn't have as much discipline, they may add value in something else, you know, perseverance or gratitude. Like they may be the gratitude person. I think you were talking earlier about you can have that person on your team that just loves on everybody, even if the world's burning down. You know, having that person that can walk in and be like, hey man, it's okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out. We're going to regroup at the end of the shift and learn like the 7 things we did pre-shift to make it where we steered the boat the wrong way. You know, and we're going to learn and not ever have this happen again. But I think you can't have someone that has no gratitude, right? That's the most ungrateful. Like, so I think there has to, you know, if you're going to have balancing, you can't have someone that has like the far whatever direction.
Yeah, you can't have the adverse or the inverse quality.
100%.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. It's definitely something to work on. I think I wrote it somewhere and I was like, yeah, we need to have a separate set of leadership characteristics. When you brought that up about curiosity, I said, yeah, there needs to be a separate set that's just for the leaders, because really at a certain level, I think when you have a company that grows to a certain size, you're going to get to a point where you don't want anyone to have curiosity. You don't want anybody like trying to be creative or curious. You just need people who actually just follow the rules, but also create harmony within and create productivity within that organization. But at the top, or even in the middle and the top of the management structure, you need to have people who have a sense of curiosity and wonder and like that lifetime learning. Like they're really get activated by learning new things and seeking after new things.
Yeah, you cannot have growth without curiosity.
No,
you know, like there's no innovation without curiosity. Like, you know, so having that curiosity, it puts you in a position that maybe the way you've always done it isn't always the right way. There may be a much better way or much more efficient way, less expensive way. You know, what, like having that curiosity is why we have what we have today. Is at some point someone was curious and said, I don't want to live by candlelight. So I'm going to figure out if this and this and this put together is going to create light or whatever. Like I'm tired of walking, or I'm tired of riding a horse. Like I'm wondering, can we create something?
This
I'm
is bullshit.
Curious if there's another better way out there.
Gotta be a better way to do this.
Gotta be a better way to get from point A to point B.
For sure.
So I think, you know, having some, you know, but then if you have a team of a bunch of curious people, and everybody's always asking questions, you know,
it's done.
Then you just sit in a whole room of just wonder, you know?
You can't have the whole company cannot consist of all Elon Musks. You can't, you have to have some followers as well. I guess that's like the Thomas Edison. Then you have like the factory of a bunch of different people and he just took credit for all their inventions basically. But I don't know. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm really pretty much questioning everything I read in history now, because everything that I read in history now, because there's so much going on. It's like, I don't know, man, who wrote that history book?
Well, it's, I don't remember what comedy it is, but it's a series. I think it's called Silicon Valley, but he's like the main guy that owns the house. Like he gets 10% of all the companies, even though he does nothing. So that's what Thomas Edison did. He gave them a safe space and an environment to create all this stuff. And then he took credit for it.
Good.
That would be a bad leader.
I mean, you know, somebody's got to be the landlord, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. They shouldn't have signed a contract on that one, I guess.
Nope.
Bad news. Well, let's see. I don't know how much time we got on this. How much time you got? You got plans today? Anything
I
going
don't
on?
have a job. Recently unemployed, so I'm good to go.
He's like, I got vacation time.
Yeah.
Have you thought anything about how we can integrate AI into our industry? That's something that I've been kind of mulling over for the last few months for sure.
Well, it's already happening. We tried it out for a little while at my past concept with voice answering, where it's like AI generated. You tell it like what the end game is, and so when people call and they're like, "I'd like to make a reservation," and they're like, "Okay," and then they literally text a link to Open Table to their phone because they knew the phone number that they came in on. So it's like, or I'd like to book a party. It literally sends them a link that takes them immediately to our website where they could book a party. So that's one way that I know that it's integrated. I know that there's some companies out there like ClearCogs, which is doing some massive stuff with AI, where they just gather data from everything, weather, sales trends. They integrate with your POS, and they'll tell you, hey, your average Tuesday's been 10 grand, but your average Tuesday's been 75 degrees and sunny. Next Tuesday is going to be 72 and rainy or 60, whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to, because we know the trend when the weather is cooler, you lose a portion of your patio or you lose, whatever. And then it will scale down your forecast. So I know that AI is, starting to take over a lot of that stuff, where I think eventually it will take over the human element of orders and prep list and things like that. But I don't think it will ever take over the hospitality piece. I don't think, and I mean, maybe, I guess if you created a robot, but that's what makes the restaurant industry so unique, is that's where a lot of the value comes from, is the service and the hospitality and the value you get from it. So I know it's already integrated into our industry. Hopefully
That's cool. I didn't know about all those technologies, around COGS and stuff. I understand in sales, and I could see in forecasting and stuff like that it would be easily used. But I do remember actually at one point, were we talking about doing a scanner code that would just enter all your inventory in, and you could take a picture of it or weigh it or something like that, and it would just know, it would automatically knew all the weights.
Yeah, no, they've got barcode scanners that, that's probably a database. I don't know how much AI that is, but the R365 has technology where you have to link the barcode with the product, because everyone calls things differently. But it knows, like, if that barcode is flour and you associate it with flour, then it knows that, all right, that's a 50-pound thing. You throw it on the scale, it knows, how much that weighs or whatever, and manually enters it for you. But yeah, AI is gonna change a lot of things.
Yeah. It's apparently the dock workers are not all too happy about it right now.
That automation, yeah.
By the way, if that guy's listening, fuck you. You're gonna be fucking replaced faster now because you're a dickhead. Did you see him talking out there about we will crush you. You don't mess with us. We'll end your supply chain. Like, are you American? Are you like an enemy of the United States? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think you guys, when you and Jonathan were talking about it, as like one of the biggest enemies is ego. Like that is where we understand the value. Like, we love linemen, right? We love those workers. Like, those people have jobs that are hard. And the reason that automation comes, is from safety and advancements in technology. It's not like we want them to be out of a job. Let's find something else for him to do. But yeah, his approach towards it, which I don't know enough about the history. I get it that they were suited up during COVID, right? Like a lot of restaurant people, the reason we probably came out of it a little bit bitter towards people is we never got a break, in the restaurant industry. Like, even though restaurants were closed, no, we weren't. No, we were there.
Not really.
We were just to go. Like, that was the only point. We were in hazmat suits with masks in the kitchen, gloves, and we were cooking people's food because people still had to eat. So we never got a break.
But we were also suffering a lot through that because we didn't get a break, but we ended up making less.
Yeah,
because we were selling less, and because we had to buy a bunch of other extra stuff like to-go boxes and masks and gloves and all this kind of crap that would just take off of the bottom line. So the small, like when I had papi carne in Peru, we couldn't survive that stuff.
Yeah.
Because we just couldn't afford, we had a slim margin. So we couldn't really afford to just suddenly be buying all this extra safety. And there was twice as much safety equipment in Peru. They were crazy.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the automation, you still have to have people that work on it. It's
Totally.
still cranes.
Yeah.
It's not like a crane is going to learn how to fix a crane or, so like teach those. I think that's where it's like they
Yeah.
could have gone wrong. Like, but also I heard that they did it even though it was against their contract. Like, to me, that's where like that trust and communication comes in. Say, hey guys, like this is going to help us unload faster, which is going to make us more money. Here's what I want to do. Over the next 18 months, we are going to train you guys how to fix this stuff or repair this stuff or manage it or lead it. Cause oil wells don't dig themselves. There's a lot of technology in that, but someone still has to run it and make sure the pressures are right and then knows what to do when it's not.
Sure.
Or, so I think that there could have been probably a much easier approach, but I think the reason he comes across as such a bad guy is because of his ego, and then they pay him
completely
$7 or $9 million like mansion. And like, it's like, I guarantee your workers don't have, like,
right.
So they wouldn't, you take a little bit of what you got and pass that down.
Exactly.
But who am I?
Yeah, no, I think that's all the right way to approach it is with a community mindset, right? Yeah. And being able to take care of your team and have, because you are going to displace a lot of workers for sure. Even if everybody, even if every machine needs somebody to maintain it or a couple of people to maintain it, you're going to have probably 100 to 1 of the amount of people that it takes to run that operation. Yeah. But the other 99 people, you can also plan for that, and you can maybe offer some outside schooling or advice, or there's plenty of room in the content creation world. So just there's all kinds of opportunities to be able to give those people a little bit more freedom. I don't know how many people grow up as a kid and they're like, I want to be a longshoreman. Yeah, like some probably do, but probably. I don't know. I'm just going to guess that 80% of the people that work in that industry didn't get in that industry for passion because they love loading and unloading shipping containers.
Yeah, no, I think it's like a family business. It's like you saw your dad do it. You saw the money he made or whatever that is. You saw the lifestyle he lived and you wanted to emulate that. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. I probably would have done that. My dad's in HVAC, but I don't like attics and ladders. So it kind of made that job a little bit hard. So I think a lot of people emulate kind of what they grew up as, but it was a rough situation.
Yeah. Well,
glad we figured it out though, at least for the short term. I think they're kind of punted it for 3 or 4 months.
For a little while. Yeah.
We do our budget.
He's still out there making threats. If you guys, if you vote the wrong way, I'm going to go but it doesn't matter honestly, which way anybody votes. He's still going to go out there and do it again.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter, but they probably paid him something. So what advice would you give to a young person who's just starting in the hospitality career? That's like someone who's even thinking about getting into hospitality. Because I always tell them, you better be nuts.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I think this has changed. I don't know if it's because every kid gets a trophy or everybody's a winner. That mentality is completely shifted. But I would say, do the work, learn the work, and then get paid to do the work. I think that's the biggest thing is if you go into the restaurant industry thinking you're going to make like millions of dollars, you're going in it for the wrong reason. Yeah. I think a lot of people do make a lot of money, but I think the biggest thing I would encourage anyone to get in the restaurant industry is learning that hospitality piece, the gratitude piece, because there's nothing harder than, on a Friday night washing, mounds and mounds of dishes, and then you just understand that humility, it's like, but I would say a lot of people nowadays, they want to get paid to learn how to do the job versus doing the job and then doing it well and then getting paid. I know there's a lot of, coaches and people that talk out about there's like, if you really want to do something, find someone that's doing it and then go work for them for free for a year. Like that's whether you do that or not, that's the mentality that it has to, as you're getting, even though you're not getting paid, you're getting paid. It's not, so like, that's the thing that the restaurant industry, I feel like teaches you. So as long as you can understand that and absorb the lessons, and what they mean and how they can impact your life, and then creating the discipline and things like that, that's the advice that I would give to anybody, starting out is just learn the business, love the business, and love on people.
Stage, work for free. That's great advice. That's how I started in the business. You went to university to study it, so you did even more than I did because you actually paid someone else to like teach you how to do it. Yeah. And so instead of removing value from the system, you were actually adding value to the system that was teaching you. Yeah. So that's a great piece of advice. There's not enough apprentices out there these days. It puts you in a mindset to where you really appreciate value instead of just money.
Yeah.
And because you can pay to go, well, I mean, my culinary upbringing is the perfect example. I was paying to go to culinary school, but I was learning 10 times more at the job, on the job, actually working and training. And I worked for free for a while, and then I worked for minimum wage for a while. And I just put myself in the best restaurants I could find and still took minimum wage. But I was getting the highest possible value from where I was working rather than the place I was actually paying to teach me, because I was really being of service to them. I was taking a hit to be able to go out there into the industry on the ground and learn from the ground up and learn how much it sucks. Sometimes it really sucks. You really have to be committed to, and they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
I say that's bullshit because there's always going to be days that you definitely feel like this is work.
Yeah.
Even if you love cooking, and especially if you love the creative side of cooking, you're going to find that more days than not, you're not getting to go out there and make some new recipe that you just discovered or play with a foie gras torchon or some new kind of technique or something. You're going to actually have to just execute the same stuff over and over and over and over again the majority of days, and you have to kind of earn the ability to get into that creative side. So
100%. I mean, I think that's why one of your core values is gratitude, and I think it resonates. It's like you were grateful for the opportunity that you were given, and you made the most of it. I think a lot of times today people are handed things and they're not very grateful, and then they think they're owed a lot more. You know, and so then that makes it even harder to lead, those people, because they always feel like they're owed something. They have that victor mentality.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, every one of your core values, I absolutely love one of them, but that one's a huge gratitude.
I couldn't live without it.
Yeah.
Gratitude is the first thing I do in the morning,
Yeah.
That's part of the meditation process. Well, let's see. I got a couple of who are some leaders in the industry that you look up to? I think we kind of talked about a couple of those. You said Jim Sullivan and Natalie Dawson. What about in other industries? Anybody in other industries that stands out as somebody you look up to?
I mean, Patrick Lencioni is a good one. I don't think he's really in our industry, but he's around the people piece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Simon Sinek is a really good one when you want to talk about like empathy and understanding people and what makes them tick. And I think he's kind of the ones where I learned a lot about like curiosity, is asking the question, not just treating the symptom, trying to cure the problem. So that's a lot of it, but I've got some people early on in my career, Darius Gillenfar, who was a COO for Cheesecake Factory for a while, and then I worked for him at Moe's restaurants, and then Granite City. He was always been a great mentor, a huge impact on my life early in my career. Johnny Vassallo, who's the owner and founder of Moe's restaurants, even though his delivery was awful at times, like I had a unique ability in being able to decipher what he was saying and like hearing the real message versus like the words that was coming out. So I definitely
I've had those.
So I had that ability, but like one of the great, and I don't think he made it up, but maybe he did. But one of the things Darius always said to me is, trust me until you trust me. And I was like, when I first heard it, I was like, I didn't understand what the hell, and then I thought about it, and then I got it. But my AKM Joe never got it. It was like, he's like, I don't get it. Like, what do you mean trust me until you trust me? He's like, that makes no sense. It's redundant. And I'm like, it makes complete sense, man. You have to trust me until you trust me. So like I've had some good mentors in this industry. I think my mom definitely had a huge impact. Her love for just people and love for me. And then my dad's work ethic. I remember, everybody wants their dad to be home, and understands why their dad's not. And I remember the song Jamie Johnson. It's like, I've got whatever 4 nickels and a dime or whatever. And he's like, how much of that, time, how much of your time will that buy? Like, just those things in life you learn, it creates values in you where it is like, so my dad worked a lot and, growing up. And I think that's where I learned a lot of my work ethic, from. And, when I had my daughter, Trista, that was one of my things is I'm going to work to be able to provide a better life, for her. So those are, you know, a few people that have had definitely some like resounding impact.
Those are
you know,
good. I mean, especially being able to say that you were raised around people that were impactful is something to not take for granted. Not everybody has that opportunity, and so that's a really good one for true.
Yeah.
I like the trust me until you trust me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you let go and let God until you find Christ or something like that, right? It's that's kind of I'm not a devout Christian or anything at all, but I do love religion, and Christianity is one of the OGs of the religious circle. I think that Christianity is sort of one of the heavy hitters. You know, it's one of the most effective, positively effective for people's lives. So that's pretty cool. Trust me until you trust you. You guys trust me until you trust me. Keep watching.
Yeah.
Until you trust me. Okay. And then the last one is, if you had to tattoo something onto your arm, a message for yourself, what would that tattoo say?
Oh, it's always the one my dad says, and I don't know it in Latin, but it's do right, fear no man, don't let the bastard get you down.
Ooh.
And it's Del Frisco's, so they have it on their like silver coin or whatever. And I think he went to some dinner or something, and they used to you could buy these coins, you know, from whatever when you dined at it. But it was do right, fear no man, don't let the bastards get you down. Now he knows it in like Latin or whatever, like because it says it on the other side. I can't. But I mean, you can look it up and then put it on the screen for the podcast. But that's definitely one that's always resonated. You know, that, or if it was going to be hidden, it might be another one from my dad is, if you're not in bed by midnight, son, come on home.
Oh, so, that's pretty good.
You know, but that one have to be hidden.
That's pretty good, though. That's pretty good. Yeah. Why would that one have to be hidden, but the bastards don't have to be hidden?
You know, I mean,
I like that.
Yeah.
If you're not in bed by midnight, son, come on home.
Come on home, son. Yeah. People might look at that and go, I don't know what that. You know, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So you know what that means.
You know what it means.
You know exactly what that means.
Well, that's good stuff, man. I appreciate your time, Earon,
Oh,
and your insight. And we'll do this again sometime if you know, whenever you have time.
For sure. Would love to. Man.
To me, this is a great way for me to learn and to express some curiosity.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's also a great way to, you know, as the podcast builds and grows, a way hopefully to be able to help give you some exposure for CEG hospitality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing consulting and you're available for consulting. So this podcast is not going to come out for about a month or so, but take some vacation time. You already have some stuff going on, and
for sure.
That's exciting stuff. It's actually pretty exciting. When I heard that you had left, I kind of was a little bit surprised when you said that I'm jobless, because you're definitely a planner and you're kind of the person who I always thought like you would have something lined up. I thought maybe hadn't told me anything yet or something like that. I don't know, but you're a very calculated and careful decision maker, like calculated risk type of guy. So hopefully that's something good, and hopefully it pans out to be better than you think.
For sure.
So
who knows? This might be the start of something new.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks
we'll
for
talk
having
soon.
me,
Cheers. Thank y'all. Don't hold your breath. Remember, keep on pushing, keep on striving, keep on breathing. You got this.